On today's show, Ivan Demidov's form stays red hot, Anton Frondell is surging, and a lot more on the Rinkside Roundup.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USHL scout over at Elite Prospects, and today we're going to be breaking down 5 of the top performing prospects from this past week of action, starting off in the first segment with Ivan Demidov. In the second, we're going to be diving into Anton Frondell, who's finally playing sustained minutes at the pro level, as well as Kasper, who has been shining on the Detroit Red Wings top line alongside Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond. But before we jump into the entire show here today, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So, Ivan Demidov is just continuing his form of high-end production, something that, every single Habs fan apparently online has been tracking night in, night out, every single time that SKA play a game, and Demidov has been scoring pretty much every time they play in recent weeks. You're seeing highlights all over the internet from very excited Habs fans, and it's easy to understand why. We've been talking about Demidov for a long time on this show at this point. We covered his entire draft year campaign last season. You can go back and look at the scouting report episode that we did on Demidov, the prospect spotlight. We've been big fans of this player for ages, and still there's been a lot of space to be impressed with his play this season, with just how refined and polished he has looked at the KHL level. He's playing top line minutes now for SKA St. Petersburg over his last 5 games. Or the last 6 games, he's exceeded 20 minutes 3 times. He's exceeded 23 minutes once. This is a player finally getting that sustained time and the opportunities at even strength and on the man advantage to create offense, and he's been doing just that. He scored a hat trick on Tuesday of last week, where he played 21 minutes. This was against VTS Moscow Regional, and it wasn't the strongest team, but Demidov was fantastic. Every goal showed different parts of his toolkit. The first goal in particular is a real thing of beauty for multiple different reasons. The entire shift was an offensive zone masterclass for Demidov, both on and off the puck. His ability to not just find, but stay in space and passing lanes, to glide towards the back post and take advantage of blind spots of defenders is so polished for a player doing this against men at a really high level in the KHL. And on top of that, this is also a player who on that shift showed just how skilled he is in using his body to protect possession. He absorbed contact along the wall to retain possession, and gave it to a teammate. And as soon as he bounced off the wall, he started really hitting his motor to get back to the mid slot, to the low slot. And that's where he got the puck back from a teammate and scored very easily. So this is a very opportunistic player, but it's his intelligence, his adaptability, and how those characteristics interact with the skill, with the dynamism, the handling flair, the playmaking creativity, the goal scoring as well, which has been really blossoming over the past couple months, especially since the Habs went and visited SKA St. Petersburg and Ivan Demidov in December. So A lot to like with Demidov's progression, and to kind of link this to the article, which is, of course, the Rinkside Roundup article at Elite Prospects, which is free to read for everyone, so no need to have an EP premium subscription to read it. It'll be linked in the description down below, so please do give it a look. I would appreciate it. I've been really enjoying getting back into written content these past months with Elite Prospects, and in the article, something I focused on with Ivan Demidov specifically is that he's a very rare prospect with his combination of these really high end levels of intelligence and anticipation and composure and timing, sense of space. Um, while also having this elite level dynamism and creativity with the puck on his stick, such an adaptive puck handler, so manipulative and deceptive, and he also has a really, really good motor, is physically resistant. He's improved greatly on the physical side in the last 12 to 15 months. And he's just progressed so impressively and steadily. Despite very inconsistent game time to start the season, he continued to just learn and absorb and grow his game, learning from the players around him. I think it's been wonderful to have had him develop alongside a player like Evgeny Kuznetsov this season, amongst other really high-end talents. I mean, Alexander Nikishin's among the better defensemen in the entire KHL and outside the NHL today. So a lot of talent on that team. He's learning to not just play alongside other players with elite levels of skill and intelligence, but to elevate them and how he can play off of them to grow his own game, and what ways he can exploit the perhaps gaps in coverage that their movement cause in order to create more offense. So a player whose game is just blossoming. Habs fans, I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. What are your expectations for Ivan Demidov? I mean, this is a player, in my opinion, with 100+ point upside at the NHL level. I think he's among the most skilled, intelligent, and overall like well-rounded offensive players not in the NHL today, and especially in a system like Montreal's, where there are already so many cornerstone pieces to build a competitive team, like Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield and Yuri Slafkovsky. Patrick Laine's been a really good goal scorer this season, and I think pairing him with a guy like Demidov would be wonderful for Patrick Laine's game. There's going to be so much talent around him in Montreal, and with a coach like Martin St. Louis, I think that's a pretty great situation to bring a player like Ivan Demidov in, who has the right mindset to play in a city like Montreal, and is so hyper competitive alongside being so skilled. I think it's going to be a wonderful fit, and very curious to see when that happens with Demidov, because it's not impossible it happens this season if the Montreal Canadiens make the playoffs, which is, of course, far from a sure thing. But in all likelihood, it's going to be in the fall. But with a full training camp, I think that Ivan Demidov could really establish himself inside the team's top six to start next season, not unlike Lane Hutson did this year in training camp, just being a top four defenseman out of the gate. I think it'll be rather similar with Demidov. And one more question for Habs fans, but also the not Habs fans, because we don't want to be overly biased in this assessment. What is your expectation for a rookie season with Ivan Demidov? How many points do you think that he's going to be a top six mainstay? Do you think he's going to hit some speed bumps, get maybe drop down the lineup, maybe even play in Laval for a little bit? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this player. And I mean, so many eyes have been on him this season, and it's only gotten more impressive here as the weeks and months have gone by. But that wraps things up here in the first segment. In the next one, we're going to be diving into Anton Frondell as well as Marco Kasper, who have both in their own rights really impressed this season, especially in the past week or two. Yeah, that and more after a quick message from our sponsors. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature, it lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to fanduel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, let's keep this going in the second segment with Anton Frondell to start off with. A very interesting prospect that we're going to link this above in the cards up in the right top corner. We did a full breakdown of this player already last week alongside Hattie before he left the show. And he's a fascinating player, a very intelligent, defensively responsible, physical center, 6 feet, 196 pounds as a left shot centerman, already a very, very mature frame. How much more runway there is physically for him to grow into remains to be seen at this point. And this season, he was mainly playing at the J20 level to start the year. He didn't crack the Sweden lineup for the World Junior Championship, where fellow Swedish draft eligible talent Victor Eklund did and was very impactful in that role. Instead, Anton Frondell played at the World Junior A Championships, did quite well at that tournament, but when he came back, was not sent back to the J20, immediately into Hockey Allsvenskan with Jurgen and IF, and he's been a bottom six mainstay ever since. A couple games even eclipsing 15 or 16 minutes of ice time here in the past couple weeks, but never, apart from one single game, playing less than 9 minutes, and very consistently just playing in that 10 to 15 range. And it's easy to see why with the impact he had, especially in a recent game against IF Bjorkloven on Monday of the last week, where he scored a pair of goals, added 2 assists in 13 minutes and 43 seconds of ice time. That was the best of Frondell for a variety of reasons. The shot, I mean, he scored his team's 2 first goals of the game to make it 1-0 and 2-1 in the first period. And they were both fantastic releases. One was from the upper mid slot, and was a nice little curl and drag kind of wrister to get around the one defender trying to block, as well as his line mate and the defender at the net front tussling for position. And it was just a really intelligently timed release and a good, accurate, hard shot. But it was the first goal that I thought was really impressive, where he combined with Victor Eklund on a one-timer in motion. Found that space really well, opened up the passing lane, and Anton Frondell is a very difficult person to stop from scoring in those situations when he has time, space, and a gaping cage with his kind of shot. So Frondell's had a really good run of form here. The defensive abilities wasn't giving him these consistent minutes. He is solid. He is physical. If anything, he's a player who cheats for defense rather than cheating for offense, and he's not the most involved in transition, which is also why I think he's a fantastic player to pair with Victor Eklund, who is so good with the puck on his stick and leading rushes up the ice. But Frondell lags behind the play in transition because he drops so low defensively. His explosiveness definitely needs some work. His speed from a standstill still is far from his strength, but still, Anton Frondell, really good week for this player. I'm hoping to see him continuing getting these consistent minutes at the pro level this year, because physically he needs to be playing pro, and he's intelligent enough, polished enough, and responsible enough defensively, in my opinion, to be playing at this level from now on. So he's a player that I still see as a bit of a mid first rounder rather than top end first rounder. But performances like these, I think, are ones that really do center the reminiscing qualities of Dalibor Dvorsky in his draft year, player that I think I want to learn from as well, because I don't think I was high enough on that player. I think I overanalyzed the doubts of the upside and the dynamism, and glossed a bit too much over how special that physical refinement, defensive solidity, and shooting threat as a combination was. And we've seen Dvorsky just excel at the OHL level with the Sudbury Wolves. But Frondell's a bit similar in terms of style. So great week for him, and definitely a prospect to keep an eye on moving forward. Next up, we have Marco Kasper, who has been so good, as every single Detroit Red Wing fan will be screaming if you're into your ear if you've been listening these past couple weeks. His production hasn't massively exploded. Had a couple big games. I mean, last week on Monday, had a 3-point outing at home against the Los Angeles Kings, scoring a pair of goals, one of which I believe was an empty netter at the end. He's a 6'1", 192-pound left shot center. So physical, so intense. One of the highest motor players among U23 NHLers, and he's 20 years old. And a player that has been really gaining the confidence of coach Todd McClellan so far since the coaching change. And over the past 4 games, he's been averaging about 17, 18 minutes a night while playing on that top line, even getting some opportunities on the top power play on the right half wall. So he's getting opportunities. This isn't the most dynamic individual player, but he's speedy, he's intense, he's middle driven. He gets to the dangerous areas. He's going to score some dirty goals. One of those goals against the LA Kings was a really pretty one by his standards, or for his style, I found. Off the rush, 2-on-1, just crashing into the dangerous areas. Initial shot attempt is stopped by the goaltender, and he just goes crashing across the crease to pot in his own rebound while basically midair and falling to the ice. So a player that leaves it all there on the ice, and is a guy that I think every single NHL team would want in their lineup. And he has 8 points in his last 10 games in his rookie season. He's definitely picking up his form, and while it will be too late for any kind of Calder consideration at this point in the season, with candidates such as Lane Hudson, Macklin Celebrini, and Matvei Michkov, Marco Kasper has been one of the better NHL rookies this season, definitely among the 5 or 6 best, and a player I definitely think has perhaps been going under the radar for fan bases that aren't the Detroit Red Wings. But that wraps up this second segment for us today. In the next one, we're going to be wrapping up the show with Ville Koivunen of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in the AHL, who has been lighting it up. He's such a fun player to watch. If you ever get the opportunity, please do. As well as Victor Söderström, who's been playing excellent hockey in the SHL this season, showing dynamic flashes of skill and offense, and could be primed for an NHL return next year. All that just after these messages from our sponsors. All righty. Let's wrap up the show here with the final segment. Starting off with one of my favorite players to have come out of Finland in the past couple of drafts, Ville Koivunen, a player that is so easy to fall in love with how he approaches the game of hockey. A 6', 172-pound left shot winger. He can play down the middle, but he projects as a winger at the NHL level. This player is all speed. He is all pace. He's really intelligent, and his hands function at his highest speeds. Some real playmaking upside as well, and he scores by crashing the net, getting himself into dangerous positions, and he's a player that excels at playing through contact. A lot of these elements are what you look for in projectable wingers in the NHL, and he's just a perfect winger for the Pittsburgh Penguins, in my opinion. They've been churning out talent on the wings for the past decade to complement Crosby and Malkin. I think Brian Rust is an interesting stylistic comp along certain lines for Ville Koivunen. Definitely some differences there in terms of speed, in terms of playmaking, goal scoring toggle, but in terms of elevating elite players, making their lives easier in really, really distinct and important ways, especially now in the older age for those guys, if they do stay Penguins in the longer term. I think Koivunen, with his speed, his pace, his incessant motor, and ability to just apply constant forechecking pressure would be fantastic to kind of play that kind of role for the Penguins in the near to medium term future. I think this is a player with high end intelligence, really good defensive work rate, and this season he has, as a rookie in the AHL, has 36 points in 39 games, including 15 goals, 4 of which came in a game last week against the Hershey Bears in a 9-0 victory, an absolute rout of the Hershey Bears. And Koivunen was at the center of the offensive production in that game. And last season, he also had a fantastic year in Liga with Karpat, scoring 22 goals and 56 points in 59 games. That was his third year in Liga, going back to his draft year in 2021, where he's playing junior, and then had 3 full seasons playing pro, and is now a point a game AHLer who's second on the team in points, behind a player who's been playing quite a bit in the NHL over the past couple of seasons in Emil Bemstrom. So a very impressive start to the campaign for Ville Koivunen, and a player that I believe in, not only because the style is so likable, but he is the exact kind of middle six winger that the NHL is trending towards valuing significantly, bringing speed, intensity, skill, playmaking, ability to elevate teammates and adapt to different situations. Koivunen can play effectively with a myriad of different kind of profiles on his line. He's not someone that needs specific styles of player to be effective alongside. He can chip in wherever he is needed, whether it is on the first line in a complementary role or on the fourth line to bring speed and skill and depth scoring. Koivunen can do it all. So he's been excellent in the AHL, really showing that maturity blossoming this season. And I think he could be an NHLer next year with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But last here, but not least, is a player with NHL experience, and significant one at that, with Victor Söderström. I'll say significant, perhaps overall NHL and AHL experience is significant. In the NHL, it's only been 53 games, but he's played over 170 games in the AHL, in the Arizona Coyotes system with the Tucson Roadrunners. So he's a player that never quite hit just yet at the North American level, always kind of floating around half a point a game in the AHL, less than that in the NHL, and struggling a little bit to create in constrained spaces offensively. The activations just weren't as fruitful as they were when he's playing in Sweden. And defensively, not a player that has necessarily the physical reliability to box out opposition at his net front. He's a 6 foot, 196-pound right shot defenseman. Definitely gotten stronger in the last year. I'll give him that, but still not a guy that you would brand as physical. But a player that has some real puck moving and puck carrying upside, especially in terms of cycle offense creation for this player at even strength. I think there's a lot of potential there. He's a really flashy puck handler. If you read the article I wrote, I linked a highlight from him last week where he dangled through 3 separate defenders, breaking ankles left and right, getting all the way down to the crease and sending a puck to a teammate who really should have scored into a gaping cage, but didn't. So should have been in a primary assist, but didn't end up being that. But this is a guy who can influence the pace of play, who can control entire shifts at the SHL level, and that's going to get NHL teams to be interested again. His signing rights still belong to Utah Hockey Club, so that would probably be the destination. However, if they don't want his profile of player as a slightly undersized, puck-moving, skilled depth defenseman to play third pairing role, if that's not what Utah wants on the right side of defense, I could see them trading him for a mid-round draft selection to a team that wants that profile, maybe even sees upside as a number 4 contributor to move the puck alongside more of a stay-at-home number 3, but more than likely a bottom pairing kind of hope for any team acquiring him. So it's a very interesting season here for Söderström. It's his first season going back to Europe after his North American stint. And it's been fantastic at the SHL level. He's made for SHL hockey. He's so good at it. The question remains, is he at the level of being able to play that style with less space, with less time in the NHL? So far in his career, the answer has not been a yes, but it hasn't been a resounding no either. He's kind of an in-betweener between AHL and NHL level, and we'll see if this season can put him over that hump. He has 7 goals and 25 points in 39 games with Brunus IF, but this is a player who's just constantly activating offensively. He can really dominate shifts at times, and our SHL scout over at Elite Prospects, Jimmy Hamrin, has noted in the group chat a couple times of just how dominant this player has been this season. It's been really, really impressive. So a player to keep an eye on for a potential offseason move, whether it's signing back with Utah or with a different organization altogether. It'll be interesting to see. So if you're curious to hear more about these 5 storylines that I talked about in today's show, please do feel free to read the entire article, link below. But that wraps things up for our episode here today. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please do make us your first listen of the day. We really appreciate our everydayers. For your second listen of the day, you can head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey, where Flip and Steel break down everything you could possibly want in terms of information about how to make your fantasy lineup not just as dominant, but as sustainable as possible if you are in a dynasty setting. And if you're watching on YouTube, please do leave a comment, like, subscribe. Let us know what you thought about the episode. What are your thoughts on these players that we talked about today, as well as potential players that have been incredibly hot over the course of the past weeks or months that we haven't been covering enough on the podcast? Please do leave that down below. But that wraps things up here. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Sebastian High, and we hope that you tune back in very shortly.